All right. Hey, guess what? Good evening. It's straight up time. Spread the word, share the link. We have our guest with us this evening. He's already in Studio B, Tom Anderson. Yes, he's here with us. So we'll be right back with tonight's program, Straight Up.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cock-a-crow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cock-a-crow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck-a-qua. Cock-a-crow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck-a-qua. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now I come home. Inaga, jackass yard for fetchy load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. So now go down but up the river. So wash.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Kellyan Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins Firm. Contact them at Alistair Collins Firm.
All right. Hey, guess what? Welcome. It's Straight Up. Good evening to all of you guys. We are going to rock and roll this evening. As you know, it's Wednesday, right? And let me give you guys a little couple of seconds to share the link and spread the word. Let your friends them know that we are on. I know we missed Tom last week because Tom, a miscommunication, that is. We had the Congresswoman Yvette Clarke on with us, and so Tom politely said, hey, let the Congresswoman have all the world and the time to speak, and that he will be back this week. And here he is. Instead of Friday, Tom is with us on Wednesday. Good evening to you, Tom. How are you?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Good. Good to see everybody. Good to be back.
Yeah, we're glad to have you back, Tom. Lots of things happening. But before we get into all the things that are happening from that athlete out there in Russia, in a Russian jail for God in heaven knows what, that basketball player, and then a delegation of folks, U.S. delegation went to Venezuela. All those things we want to get into. But how have you been?
I've been great, man. Everything's been really good. The world's a crazy place, of course, but I've been great, man, and been waiting to get back on the show, waiting to share some conversations with you, with the people of Guyana. It's interesting because we've had these conversations for years, and now we can have them for everyone to hear. So I've just been, excited to get back on and talk.
Definitely, we can have these conversations now in the public.
Yeah.
Good. So, Tom, let's talk about that WNBA athlete out there in Russia, in a Russian prison for God in heaven knows what, some little oil with some marijuana in it, marijuana oil. You think it has to do with marijuana, or is there more behind
Well,
that?
of course, we're in war. We're in war between us and Russia. It's not a conventional war. Our soldiers aren't on the ground. We don't have tanks, we don't have planes in the air, but we've definitely inflicted some economic war policies on these guys that are just as bad, if not worse, than actual war machines on the ground. So we're in a war, and this is the taking of a political prisoner at the end of the day. Brittney Griner is a political prisoner right now.
Yeah, you're convinced, and all of us are indeed, yes, convinced that she is a political prisoner.
Yeah, she is, and no one can say anything about it. Okay, and I wanted to talk about this because, Mark, the reason why there isn't much out there in way of, let's say, LeBron James speaking, or let's say President Biden, this is dangerous for her life. Right. See, when you're a political prisoner, it's a little different. Once you're in that situation now, everything is very, very, on the edge. Like her life hangs in the balance. And so no one can say anything now. OK, like the president, everyone has to stay quiet. They have to hope that they can sort of back channel a way for her to get away from there. That's what they're hoping to do. But everyone's silent. And the reason why they're silent now is because everyone was silent before. I hate to say it, but look, when people like Jack Deo abuse their power, and hurt innocent people who are, nobodies, lowly little people, everyone tends to say, oh, whatever, he's a powerful man, things happen, collateral damage, not a big deal, right? Well, it is a big deal, because when they do that to little people and no one says anything, the message is sent that they can do that to other people. And so they go up the ladder. They start doing it to middle class people, and they start doing it to wealthy people. And then before you know it, they're grabbing athletes. And why is it important to grab an athlete? Because people know them. So when you're at war with another country, you can grab on to someone like an athlete, and that is going to be different than if you grab on to some person that's just a random regular person, right? So now they've got power in their hands with holding her as a prisoner, and now everyone has to stay silent now. No one can talk now. And I'm not telling LeBron James to go out and speak, because he can't. Like him speaking right now might end her life potentially. Seriously, that could happen. And so he can't speak.
Yeah, President Biden, they did publicly say that, call for her release and so forth. I got we got what you're saying in terms of not too many folks can go out there and speak. Not a LeBron James, not a Shaq O'Neal or a Michael Jordan. Those guys can't say anything at the moment.
But here's the thing: she's been in jail now, Mark, since the beginning of February. Biden is just now saying something. What month is this?
Obviously, they knew.
Right? That's my point, is that there has been silence all this time that she's been in jail for all these weeks, because everyone knows if you say the wrong thing publicly, bad things can happen to her. That's how you know this is a political prisoner situation, because she's
Yeah.
been in there for that long, and now the president is saying something now all this time later. It's so my point is, I don't want to get on LeBron right now for this, or any other athlete that has a platform, Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, right? They can't say anything. It's too much of a dangerous situation for them to say a word now. But my point is this: when they see abuses happening to regular people, they need to say something then, right? That's when you need to speak. Okay, you have to speak when innocent, lowly people who don't have a voice, when those people are getting abused by the Jack Dales of the world. I don't care where you are. If you have a platform, you have to use it. You have to use it for people who don't have a voice, because if you don't use it, then it leads to what we're seeing now. That's my point.
Tom, you're correct, because we see this happening in Guyana. And we have, as you indicated earlier, we have been speaking about lots of these sort of issues, and even more privately for many years now. We're now doing it publicly, that even in Guyana, that when things happen to people, a lot of those folks back there are quiet. But yet recently we saw a group of concerned Guyanese were in front of the Russian embassy in Guyana, of course, protesting about what's happening in Ukraine. And there are some people saying, but where were you guys? You guys were not speaking out when people were being slaughtered in Guyana, and especially protesting in front of the Russian embassy when workers, I think 50 or 60 something workers, were sacked by Rusal, a Russian company, and where there were just a handful of us protesting in front of the Russian embassy. Nobody gave a damn about what was happening in Guyana. I don't know. I agree with you.
That's
in
the
terms
point,
of
Mark.
people.
You're absolutely right. That's it, right? That's exactly it. Is that if you don't speak when the little guy is being mowed down, why do you have a platform? Because here's the thing: when the superstar gets arrested, like Brittney Griner, you can't speak then. You can't. You can't. So think about it, right? The only time these guys can really use their voice, when it really applies, when they can use their platform for when it really applies, is when you and a few handful of people out there protesting against Rusal and their abuses. That's when people need to be out. That's when people need to speak. You have to speak when it's small, when it's not that big, because once it becomes big, you can't speak then. It's too late. Now now it's just fighting now.
So,
right?
some people do say, and I know the Guyanese do have a saying, and better late than never, and that is to justify some of these folks who are now speaking out, all because it's convenient for them to speak out. Tom,
Yeah.
for those who are now joining us, good evening to all of you. Tom Anderson is my guest this evening, no stranger. In fact, he should have been my co-host, but I'm the one who's asking all of the questions. Tom, let's head to Venezuela, man. A U.S. delegation went out there in Venezuela. They met with Maduro. Maduro said that, hey, he met with these, these are not the officials. These are persons who were captured in Venezuela. But he met with the U.S. delegation, and at his office, immediately following that meeting, two of these guys were released. And Maduro said that he is now going to be meeting and talking with members of the opposition. Your take on that, sir?
Well, the war is now on your shores in Guyana. It's here. And the way you know it's here is you see that going on, right? So what's bringing a U.S. delegation down to Venezuela? Oil, right? And why do we need oil? We need it because the oil coming from Russia is no more. And so we have to find every nook and cranny of oil there is to find to replace the oil that Russia usually brings online. Why do we have to do that? We have to do that because if not, you're going to see something worse than economies crashing. You're going to see people starving. Okay, that's what you have to understand now. The war is here. Now, you're not going to see tanks in the streets, but the war is here. Why? Because think about it. I think the Ukraine is top, like number 2 for exports in certain grains. They've got so many natural resources. I could just go on and on. Lithium. I mean, it's on and on and on. Oil, gas. So all of this is now offline. Since this is all offline and they're the breadbasket to Europe and to everybody, well, where's Europe going to get the food they need to feed their people? Well, a lot of it's going to come from us. A lot of it's going to come from Central and South America, right? So if more food is being exported from Central and South America and America to Europe to cover for everything lost in Ukraine, well, then what are you guys going to eat? No one's thinking about this, right? So here we are. We're meeting with Maduro. He's about to get a boatload of cash. He's going to get a boatload of cash and he's going to be looking to spend it. What's he going to spend it on? Definitely military. He's definitely going to be wanting to feed his people. And so you could see how there may be some turbulent waters ahead for Guyana, where you all may be caught between a couple of rocks here. Okay.
When you say, Tom, turbulent waters ahead, break that down. Explain it for the people.
Repeat that again. I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. Break that. So say it again. Turbulent waters ahead. Yes.
For Guyanese.
So simply put, a government has to always have set, defined borders. Okay. With Venezuela back in the game, sending oil up to Houston and other places in Texas and reaping the money, they're going to be looking at the border with you guys soon. It's just a guarantee. Okay. So right then and there, Guyana is going to have border issues here, period. So that's one of the main functions the government has. They're going to have issues now with border security, border issues with Venezuela. Okay. What comes with those border issues? Well, Maduro and his people are, once they get the money back, you're going to see a lot of drugs coming through. You're going to see a lot of stolen goods. It's going to be crazy. Okay. And so the people of Guyana are going to feel that as well. The crime coming through is going to be through the roof. Okay. Number 3, food security. Okay. As a government, the Guyanese government has to ensure that the people of Guyana can eat. Well, with the breadbasket of Europe gone and food supplies are going to be taken from here in Central America, South America, and North America to fill that hole, well, it's guaranteed that food prices are going to go up. And when I say up, they're already up now, inflation. They're going to go even higher. So how does that hamper the ability of the Guyanese government to make sure that there's enough food for people to eat, affordable food? That's going to be a huge problem. Are the people in the government even thinking about this right now? I doubt it, but they better, because with us over there, and we're cutting deals so fast with Venezuela that we need the oil now. And if we need the oil now, we need the food now. We need it now, we need it yesterday. And so that means the crunch is coming for people of Guyana.
You know, Tom, the oil deal, that's what it's about. But Maduro, he has this close relationship with Putin and Russia. But Rosneft owns 49%, and that's the Russian oil company. 49% of the Venezuelan oil, one of the Venezuelan oil companies there. What's going to be that relationship like between Venezuela, Maduro now, and Putin? Now that the Americans have said, look, we need to talk.
Well, remember, Maduro, he's a dictator. Maduro's only on one team. It's Team Maduro. That's it. So if Putin can help him deal with us, then Putin's his buddy, right? If now he doesn't need Putin to deal with us, well, now he's in a better negotiating position for Putin to have to do more for him, right? Because he's going to say, hey, man, I don't need you to deal with the Americans. I'm fine with them. So what are you going to do for me now, Putin? Right? So this actually puts Maduro in a very powerful position for his own interests. That's why I say, people of Guyana, be careful, because you have basically the devil's nephew is going to be full of cash, doing whatever he wants. No one's going to stop him. And it's guaranteed to cause trouble for you guys.
All right. Hey, we're keeping our fingers crossed that we don't get to that. But Tom, whatever you say is oftentimes it comes to pass. But you're not surprised that two of the guys held captive out in Venezuela prison for several years now. You're not surprised that they were immediately released. Two of them, not all.
I mean, come on. I mean, that's a part of why Maduro imprisoned these men, right? Because he's using that. He just gave away two of the chips he has to bargain with. Okay, if we want the other men out, we have to come with more money. I'm sorry, but that's what this is all about. Whatever deal we cut, it was only enough money for two guys to go free. Whatever that was. So when we hear some number, guys, if you hear a number in the news that the United States has agreed to some dollar amount with Venezuela on something, that's the dollar amount it costs to free two men. So how much more for everyone else? Now you know.
All right. Hey, guess what? Since we're in Venezuela, I'm sure that because you know almost everything that's happening. As you described, there are people who are walking on the dirt roads of Guyana, potholes, and meanwhile there are others who are driving Lamborghinis and so forth. Jack Deo, are you surprised that Jack Deo actually said this and suggested that concession of Guyana's river territory to Venezuela? Are you surprised at this, Tom?
I'm not surprised because remember, Jack Deo, he's in the school of dictators himself, right? I mean, he's not a guy who's a standard bearer for democracy. I mean, he's a wannabe dictator himself, and so of course, remember, for a dictator, a nation's boundaries, borders, that's just something to negotiate for some cash. There's nothing that cannot be negotiated with a dictator. If someone comes with enough money, they will sell off their own kids. They don't care, right? This is how they roll. So I'm not surprised that that would even be made public that he considered it, because that's the one thing that the dictator needs to do, is needs to let the people around know, hey, these are the things you can bribe me on. These are the things you can pay me for. And so clearly he sent the message that, for the right amount, maybe we can decide that our borders aren't our borders anymore. We can just hand over a bunch of land to Venezuela. Who cares?
Who cares indeed, but a lot of Guyanese care.
Of course.
What we do know, though, is that Jack Deo and his cabal, they're not concerned about the Guyanese people. They're not patriotic. If he can go as far as, and that's why I want our listeners to know, to see that this is exactly what he did in terms of giving up a piece of, the river territory is the same as the territory to Venezuela. That is exactly what he had in mind. And this is what Jack Deo said, that there were other options. I don't know, Tom, what other options he's talking about. Maybe some of our listeners can tell us what were some of the other options that involved a negotiated settlement, which did not see any land concession. So he's talking about other options. But let us remind our listeners that at the end or coming soon, because that other option, President David Griner, meeting there with Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, and Maduro, to ensure that they take this to court. And there should be a decision soon. I am almost certain that that decision about the territory, the claim of Essequibo there by Venezuela, Guyana will win that case. And this is who we have to credit for winning that case. President David Griner and his team, not Barra Jack Deo, because if we had left this up to Barra Jack Deo, this is what would have happened. A piece of Venezuela would have gone directly into the hands of the Venezuelans. All compliments of Barra Jack Deo. Tom?
Yeah, well, you have to remember, guys like Jack Deo, they don't believe it's not good enough to go to courts and fight it out in the international tribunal and have an election and do everything by the books. No, it's better because he's so smart. In his mind, he's a genius. So why should he be bound by
in his
any?
mind? I
Yes,
like
in his
how you
mind, he's a
said in his
genius.
mind.
So why should he be bound to any rules or any courts or anything? He should be able to just to talk to Maduro man to man, and there you go. We've got our deal, right? And oh, if a bunch of Guyanese people lose their land, oh well, too bad.
Who
Right?
cares?
Too
Yeah.
bad. I mean, yeah, that happens. What do you want to do? You want to go to war with Venezuela? Is what he'll say. You want to go to war for those little bit of swamplands that nothing? That's the attitude, right? But here's the issue with that. Like I said before, maintaining your country's borders. That's one of the. If that's not the primary job of a government, I don't know what is. Right. And so that's what you have with a guy like Jack Dale, is a man who is willing to negotiate away even the most important job there is to maintain your land and your borders for your people. Clearly, he's willing to negotiate that away.
And to try to justify it to that Venezuela and Guyana can have a working relationship. In other words, you know what Jack Dale was attempting to do there, right? He wasn't
Yeah,
concerned about Guyana at all, Tom, at all.
Yeah.
And I know that you're not surprised.
Not surprised, but what's sad is, well, here's the reality to all of this, right? The reality is that a guy like Maduro is only going to breed chaos and war for everyone near him. Okay, he's not going to bring peace, love, happiness. He's not going to bring a government that's transparent, that believes in human rights. That's not who this man is. Okay, bottom line, right? And so we are because of this war with Russia, we're about to give him hundreds of millions, billions of dollars for him to do with whatever he wants. We've seen the kinds of things that he wants to do with that money. It's not going to be good for the people of that region, no matter how you cut it, right? And so, like I said before, this is proof that the war is here, right? And your listeners, the people of Guyana, need to understand something. It's something that the American people need to understand as well, right? We view war through the lens of what we were taught in school, what we grew up seeing, black and white video of World War II, video of Vietnam War. We've seen Desert Storm. This is what we've seen. And we're used to war being tanks and jets and guns and troops. Well, in the year 2022, because of technology, war has expanded greatly, okay? Greatly. And we're at the point now where our war machines are so deadly that it's almost impossible to use them to win anything, right? Because once you start using these war machines on people, they're never going to forgive you. So it's not like you can beat them and then rule over them. They're never going to allow it because the machines were too brutal. So what happens now? Information becomes a battle space. Senator Marco Rubio, I don't like the guy half the time, but he just said it a couple days ago. He said information is now a battle space in this world. Okay. And it is. Why? Because now you have to defeat your enemy in their mind and in their soul. You're not going to be able to defeat an enemy with tanks and planes anymore. That's not how this world works because we're too interconnected, right? If you try to, let's say China hates us and so they want to get rid of America. If that happened, the entire world will go into a depression because what we bring to the table, it's just too much, right? And that's almost every country now. Almost every country is an integral piece of all of our lives. And so when a war is happening in Ukraine, guess what? The people of Guyana are a part of that war. And the way you're going to feel it is, you already know your food prices have gone up. They're going to skyrocket even more. You're going to have a hard time getting your basic needs and supplies. Like your basics are going to be hard to get a hold of. That's just the truth, okay? And when that happens, usually countries start to go to war over that. And that's what Putin's play is here. People don't understand what Putin's true initiative is here. What he's trying to do is this. Whether he wins in Ukraine or not, it does not matter, okay? What matters is that he takes all of the natural resources that the Ukraine provides to the world, he takes them offline. Because if he takes those resources offline, he now forces allies to fight each other over food. You get it? What's going to happen is the Polish people are going to be looking to eat, okay? And they're going to be short on grain. And the French are going to say, well, you can't have ours. And the Polish people are going to say, well, wait a minute. We need to eat too. This is how you create division. That's what Putin's after, is division between allies over food fights, literally. So
Food
the
fight.
war is here, and you guys in Guyana are going to start feeling it, and you will feel it through your gas, through your food.
Thank you, Tom, for breaking that down. And Guyana, we've had our own little war there in Guyana as well. This was a member of a killing squad. And I know you know a heck of a lot about the killing squads in Guyana and some of those members. This guy is Mark Kazurki. He died under questionable circumstances at the Georgetown Public Hospital. And this guy was actually part of a group who met with Bara Jagdeo at State House when Bara Jagdeo was the president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. And I say this to say that we've had our own war in Guyana, and Jagdeo knows a heck of a lot about those sort of killing squads, phantom squads, and so forth. And surely that is nothing strange to you because you have been following that as well. So I just thought I remind our listeners and the viewers as well that we have had our little Ukraine in Guyana. And while we had our little Ukraine in Guyana, a lot of the folks who are speaking out now and crying out about what is happening in Ukraine, and now mind, rightly so, they should. But those are the same people who were quiet when we had our own little war in Guyana. 6 persons were slaughtered, 5 persons per day, 3 persons per day, and all manner of things. And even this young man here, or in Boston, a businessman, Tom, in Guyana, was recently murdered by a member of the police SWAT team. We didn't see or hear the groups coming out and saying anything and calling for justice for this guy when he was killed. And we all know the reason why they were not. Take a good look at him, why they were not concerned about this guy, but they're concerned about going in front of the Russian embassy and protesting about what's happening in the Ukraine. But like you have said earlier, that when it happens to the small guy, all should be speaking out. And the truth is, all do not speak out at
That's
all.
what when you don't when it happens to the small guy and no one speaks out, the message is sent to dictators that they can do whatever they want. That's just the truth, right?
That's exactly what dictators around the world, including that dictator in Guyana that we all know about, Bara Jagdeo and his cronies, that's exactly what they have been doing. But let's get back to this trip in Venezuela, this U.S. delegation. That's it. I was actually looking to see where our good friend Congressman Meeks, apparently he wasn't part of that delegation at all. Are you surprised?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. He has a checkered past with the nation of Venezuela. He doesn't need to be anywhere near that. Period. End of story. He shouldn't be chairman of foreign relations, to tell you the truth. That's a problem all of harp on it anymore. But I'm not surprised. And this is what I was saying to you before, Mark. You see, of course, this is a show in Guyana, so I talk about Guyana a lot, right? Don't think that that's because I think America is perfect. I do not. If this was an American show, I could go on and on and on about the things that we need to fix over here. All right. With that said, our biggest problem that we have is we have really poor leadership, especially when it comes to matters such as the ones we're facing right now. Okay. Now, if Gregory Meeks would be a great guy in the position he's in, if this was the mid 2000s, let's say it's the Iraq war and we have to cut some deals with the Pakistani military and stuff, Meeks is great for that. He's got connections out there. He's good for that. Okay, fine. But in a world in war where it's not about cutting deals, where it's not about, shaking hands, where it's about standing up for what's right and believing in what's right, that's not his, that's not what he's good at. That's not what he's for. And so we've got the wrong leadership for the wrong time. And proof of that is he was nowhere near, he had nothing to do with this Venezuela thing, and he shouldn't have anything to do with it. But how sad is that we have a man in that position and he has to be back in the background. He can't apply his weight to a situation to help not just our situation in the United States and what we're dealing with Russia, but everybody in this hemisphere, because we're at a point now where, yeah, our delegation is meeting with the Venezuelans, but truth be told, we are meeting with everybody up and down the hemisphere. Okay, it's news of Venezuela because we've been angry at them and we've been fighting with them. Okay, fine. But we are meeting with everybody throughout the entire hemisphere. Why? We are at war. And as a hemisphere, all of the peoples of this hemisphere in the Caribbean, Central, South America, North America, we have to join up together, at least the people who believe in freedom. Now, there are people here who believe in having a dictator rule. Okay, and we see that in a lot of countries. But for the people who believe in I'd say small d democracy, people who believe in freedom, people who believe in voting for your representation, all of us, regardless of your nationality, we all need to band together and we all need to stand for the simple things like transparency, good leadership, maintaining our borders, making sure that when someone's doing something that's corrupt, they go to jail. Making sure if someone kills, they murder, they go to jail. These are just the simple things. We all need to band together and hold our elected officials' feet to the fire more than ever now. As a group, as a collective, all of us do. If not, we're going to have death and destruction happening here on our end as well.
Wow, lots of that. I was just reading just the other day, a senior police officer in Guyana was actually complaining about the U.S. visa being revoked. A lot of those officers who have been involved and accused of human rights violations in Guyana, their visas have been revoked. Maybe more of those visas ought to be revoked, not just those policemen. And again, Tom, you're familiar with a lot of these cases. You're not surprised that a senior police officer is complaining about the abuses and the revocation of visas of police officers.
Look, that's one of the things that I harp on about, Guyana, and one of the things that the people listening to your show can fix immediately. If they ask their elected officials to make it a focus, to make sure that the government of Guyana provides real documentation, real documents, okay? Traceable, accurate documentation to identify people. You need that, okay? That's the problem. If that isn't fixed, the visa process is going to continue to be a train wreck, period, right? Now, I don't know if this guy I don't know if he did something wrong or not, but here's what I do know. On the American side, we've got no clue who's who coming out of Guyana. We don't know. We don't know if the person's obtained the visa legally, or we've got no clue. And I'm just telling you. Now, look, that our embassy workers will probably be really mad right now hearing that because they feel like they do a great job. It's not their fault, okay?
And to some extent, Tom, we haven't been hearing any controversy at all over the past few years. Unlike, I think the last culprit at the U.S. embassy there was you familiar with that guy who was trading, was being involved in certain relationship and giving out visas and so forth.
Yes.
And that was almost maybe 7-8 years ago. We haven't heard much about anything controversy. So one would expect.
But I don't think the problem is on the embassy side anymore. See, I think it's on the end of bogus birth certificates, stuff like that, where I think you can get all the prerequisite documentation you need to get a visa from our embassy, and there's nothing our workers can do to stop it, right? Even, you're with a totally different identity now. You may not even be from Guyana, and you're getting these documents, right? That's That's one of the
You may
biggest
be from
problems.
Bangladesh, Pakistan,
Right? Who
maybe
knows? You could be
Africa,
an
could be
alien from Jupiter.
China, and
Exactly.
there are lots of cases like that with Bangladesh and Pakistani turning up with a Guyanese passport and visas, U.S. visas in there.
And
Anyways,
look,
that's
and this isn't a hard problem to fix, right? That's the part that's so frustrating. I don't know if people need to realize in Guyana, okay, look, it's imperative that you have the ability to get visas to come to the United States whenever you need to. It's imperative. I'll tell you why. That's the easiest way for anyone in Guyana to build wealth. Seriously. If you can get a visa, come to the United States, you can build a lot of wealth in Guyana with that visa coming here. Getting those visas is going to be harder and harder and harder for regular people to get if the government doesn't fix its act up on documentation and identification of persons in the country. And now here's the beauty of it. The government of Guyana has an opportunity to become like futuristic, okay? They could actually implement a policy for government documents that's biometric, that makes every country in the world, puts them all to shame, makes us look bad. They could actually do it, and it's not that expensive.
The Guyana passport as part of a requirement to know exactly who is coming into the country, into the U.S. Through their fingerprints and so forth, the biometric, they had to upgrade their passports to biometric. And so the minute that passport, and for folks who may not know, the minute your passport is scanned based on your fingerprints, it goes into the system to alert maybe Homeland Security or Border Patrol guys them that, look, X, Y, or Z person is coming. And they've been allowed to slip through the crack, but when they get to the port of entry, whether JFK or wherever, here is your opportunity to move in. So, however, but with the birth certificate, there's a major problem in terms of authenticity. Major problem.
Major problem on all any identification as Guyana only documentation. There are problems there, and the government, for not much money, can fix that really easily, and that alone would actually open the country up to more business coming in, because there are businessmen who look at Guyana and go, "Well, I'm scared because I don't know if there's rule of law in that country."
A lot of them are not scared now because a lot of money to be made.
Well, the bad ones, right? But that's the problem, right? You want to bring the good guys to Guyana, right? The good businessmen.
The corrupt. Well, not all of them, I would say, are corrupt, but
they're not. But how many businessmen do you want coming to put it this way? If a businessman doesn't care about rule of law when he comes to a country to invest money, what's he doing? I mean, that's telling me he doesn't want rule of law. That rule of law hurts his business. So when I hear that, I go, "Whoa, you don't want that guy in your country."
You know, speaking of the rule of law and business and so forth, here is your guy, Sue. Sue holds mining permits for over 40,000 acres.
I told you, Mark, he was the second biggest holder of forest land in Guyana. I told you. He's not just some little Chinese guy on the corner who doesn't know what he's talking about. This man owns more land than almost any human on the planet when it comes to Guyana. Think about that. That man you're looking at, that man, Mr. Sue, owns more land of Guyana than any Guyanese person does. There isn't a single person in Guyana, born in Guyana, that owns anywhere near as much land as this man. Think about that for a second.
I'm thinking, and lots of Guyanese who are listening, they're also thinking. Tom Anderson is our guest this evening. We're looking at the time. We still have a few minutes remaining. But here is Sue. Sue is a friend of Jack Diel.
He's a tenant. Remember?
Tenant. But
he's a tenant.
Recently, this is what I did. I actually sent a letter to Soku asking them to investigate what's happening there, the allegations made against, It's Wednesday night. I haven't heard from Soku
You're not
at
going to hear
all.
anything from them at all, man. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
They're not going to even say, hi, we got your letter. Thank you. Nothing.
Nothing, man. They're not going to say anything. They don't have the ability to investigate someone like Mr. Sue. It's impossible, right? Like any one of their investigators, if he tried to actually do his job and he went out into the forest to see, oh, what's going on out here, he'd never make it back. But this is the truth.
Well, you know, Tom, Irfan Ali, who sits there as the president of Guyana, he has had his Canadian visa taken away. He was blocked from boarding a plane that was heading to Canada. He was blocked. Over 2 years now, he cannot come out. He promised to explain why the Canadians revoked his visa. And of course, it may have to do with allegations of money laundering. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's what it is. I don't know. I don't know if you know, but I don't know. But, you know, with the level of allegations that's leveled against Barra Jagdeo, who has since denied it, and he told us also, meaning the public, that he told us that Sue has denied those allegations as well. This is what Jagdeo said. Sue denied it. Yeah. I spoke with Sue. Sue also, of course, he's not going to say that he gave Jagdeo a bribe or whatever. He denied it also. The point I'm trying to make in terms of how the Canadians revoked Irfan Ali's visa, why do you think that the Americans seem to have a soft glove approach to Barra Jagdeo? Is that a correct assessment of what's happening?
What was that last second? You broke up a little bit.
Is it a perfect assessment to say that the Americans seem to have a soft spot for Jagdeo, knowing the type of person that he is, Tom?
Well, here's the thing, right? I wouldn't say they have a soft spot for him, because remember, I don't think anyone in this administration is going to like Barack Jagdeo. I'm sorry. I don't think they're going to like the guy. Okay. He's someone they have to deal with. Okay. So with that said, I don't think they have a soft spot for him. Here's the issue. They know that they're dealing with someone who, like I said before, he's in the mindset of a dictator. They're not dealing with someone who's trying to do the right thing for his people type of guy. The guy who's fighting for freedom. That's not what they're dealing with. They're dealing with someone who will cut a deal with them, and then as soon as they turn their back, he will put a million knives in their back, right? They know this. So I won't say that there's a soft spot for him. It's more of they're dealing with someone who they can't trust ever. And so it's a precarious situation. That's what I think. And I think I think from their perspective, hey man, we don't know what this guy might do. So let's just kind of just leave him alone a little bit. If he wants to be our friends, okay, good. And let's just keep it that way. And I think that's where they kind of are. They don't want to turn this guy into another dictator of South America, is the bottom line.
Okay, that's the bottom line. We're listening. This is Tom Anderson. We are here on Straight Up Tom. I want you to listen to this tape here, because this thing about rigged elections and what Jagdeo and Irfan and their people are trying to say, I'm sure at your end there has been no evidence to substantiate their claim that the APNU AFC then government rigged the elections. But this is every time Irfan Ali and others are confronted about this issue, this is how they react.
Entire international community spoke about the attempts to rig an election, spoke about the attempt democracy from the people of this country. Let's fix that first. Let us fix that. Let us rid ourselves of these monsters in society who would want to take away the rule of law and rig elections. The days for those are gone. And we must fix that. Let's start from there. Let's start fixing that.
A joke.
Let's start
Riggers talking about rigged elections. Yeah, Tom, sorry, I did that tape earlier, maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and I just wanted you to hear exactly what Irfan Ali was talking about. These monsters, and rigged elections, and no evidence whatsoever. Your take, sitting from the outside watching in.
Well, look, he's trying to pivot. It's important that he shows to the international community and to wealthy bankers that have a lot of money that he shows that, hey, I'm not all about rigging elections. I'm the guy here. Look, I'm Dr. Irfan Ali. I'm doctor. I'm highly educated. You see, you can trust me. So give me all this money. That's what this is, right? Now, I will say this. Sometimes even a bad person can do the right thing. And so into reality, good things that we should support rule of law, right? He's saying, oh, we need to fix this. Okay, we should fix those things. I will agree with him. They need to be fixed, right? Now, but the problem is, though, all I notice from him are words. Words. He talks a lot. But what's actually being done, right? What's actually being done to support rule of law in Guyana? And here's my big question. Let's say I want to believe Dr. Ali, that he is the guy to come and secure rule of law in Guyana. All right. Well, the first thing I would think is he should be worried for his life if that's the case. Because everyone knows in Guyana, if you're going to come there and you're going to actually bring rule of law and you're going to stop the gold smuggling, the human smuggling, the drug smuggling, you're going to stop all of this. Well, they're going to try to kill you. Am I wrong? Okay. He walks around as a confident man.
Serious about the rule of law. We already
No,
know.
he's not. That's why I say he's talking a good game, and I like what he's saying. But is he actually doing anything to implement rule of law? I think not, right? As a matter of fact, as you pointed out, he's half the time doing the opposite, right? And so it's good for him to say that. I'm glad he's saying that, right? He has to say that because he needs money, a lot of it, right? To do anything that he dreams of in Guyana. He's only going to get that money if these bankers think they're going to get their money back or they have a way to get it back. What they don't want to see is they give him the money and they put the money down on some cheap Chinese bridge. You know why? Because if they don't pay the money back, these bankers are going to come to repossess the bridge. But if it's a cheap Chinese bridge, it's nothing to repossess. You see, so he's in a quagmire, right? He's walking around, he's saying the right things, but he's showing these bankers, oh, if you give me the money, I'm going to use the cheap Chinese garbage. And everyone's going, no, man, no, we're not going to do that. We want to make sure we can get our investment back from you. And so he's in a precarious spot. He has to say the right things. Yeah. I say this, Mark.
Sure.
Wouldn't life be so much easier if these guys actually did what they're proclaiming? If they actually implemented rule of law, guess what would happen? They would get all the investment they want in Guyana. It would come like there's no tomorrow. They don't realize, right? But you know what the problem is? It comes down to this. That's proof that deep down inside, these are just evil people. That they, not only do they not have the intention to do right, they don't have the ability to do right. They don't. And that is what needs to be gotten rid of in Guyana, are the people who don't have the ability to do right. Even if they wanted to, they don't have the ability, and that's what you have in leadership in Guyana. And unfortunately, we have a lot of that here in America as well.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Tom, but looking at the time and investments and so forth,
yes,
the U.S. vetoed, and this is interesting because the guy at the IDB was actually part of the U.S. State Department, and he was appointed by the Trump administration. This is not a guy. This guy is supposedly part of the business there. So this here, This company, I think they applied for about 180 something million or 150 million US dollars as a loan from the IDB. After the IDB finally did a proper research, the plug was pulled. And we all know, well, we can assume, and those out there can assume who actually pulled the plug on this business. But the backstory to it is that one main guy in this company was held a couple of years ago in the US on allegations of money laundering. Any surprise that the IDB did this, Tom?
Well, that's one of the things the IDB has to. It's funny. So I'm not surprised for this reason. There are many, many, many money launderers involved with applications for loans through the IDB. Okay. That's one of the problems with lending to developing countries, right? And that's why I keep saying over and over again that it's imperative that the people of Guyana hold their government accountable in the way of rule of law, documentation. Why? Because that's the only way you leave developmental stage. As long as you're in the developmental stage, you're going to have times where your country needs things to be built, and the people in your country to go to apply for the money to build it are going to have sketchy backgrounds, and they're not going to get the money. This is why rule of law is so important. You know why? Because if rule of law was being applied in Guyana, this individual would have never made it on that application, right? It would have never happened. And that's the problem here. So it doesn't cost money to implement rule of law. It really doesn't. You know what it costs? It costs time and effort, know-how, right? You have to have the right people in place who know how to do it and who are willing to put the effort in. And that's what's truly lacking in Guyana. And that's why, no matter how you want to cut it, it's not about the parties. It's not about PPP or PNC. What it's about is who is going to do the job properly for the people of Guyana to pull the country out of the developmental stage where loans get denied because individuals have sketchy backgrounds on the applications, and into the real world where you don't even have to apply to the IDB. You know why? Because banks all over the world are dying to lend you money because they can't help but to look at the beautiful infrastructure their banks are financing to build for the great people of Guyana. That's there to be had, but you have to implement the rule of law to get it.
Absolutely. The rule of law. Tom has been hitting at the rule of law. Lots of policemen are not following the rule of law. They're basically following instructions from Freedom House or Office of the President. As one commander, one senior police officer mentioned, that they are policemen who have had their visas revoked. And it's something that maybe needs to be revisited. Not only policemen, but also corrupt government officials. I know of an individual, well, several individuals whose US visas and Canadian visas were revoked. This guy has had his visa revoked for questionable dealings and so forth, allegations of that sort of conduct. But yet he got his visa back. He got his visa back recently. He visited the US, and that is the guy who stood up in Parliament and said this here.
The reason why this figure was higher in, you gotta get dildo, that's what you're looking for. There were snacks that had, the reason why this figure was higher in, you gotta get dildo, that's what you're looking for.
So he was in Parliament, just like in Congress or in the Senate, the chambers there, and they're talking.
Yeah.
He turned to members of the opposition side and told them exactly what they got to get. And the allegation is that he actually made that remark toward a female MP. He has since denied that that is not true, but that is the guy who has had his many years, around 2015 or so, he has had his US visa revoked. next thing you know, he's there in Queens, he's in Brooklyn, he's all over now. Nigel Dharamlal, are you surprised that he got his visa back?
I'm not. I mean, like I say, you know, when you have a situation, man, I hate to harp on it, but look, unfortunately, Mark, a lot of these men, if you want to be successful in Guyana, when a country doesn't have rule of law and it has citizens who are intelligent, who are educated, who try to become successful in their home country, they end up having to do things that are not right because the country itself isn't run right. Right. And so these men who would be normally honorable men have to do shady things to get a business deal done, like pay off a politician. Right. Not that these men are being shady individuals, not that they are bad, but the only way to do business in a country that has no rule of law or lack of rule of law, not a lot of it, people. Okay, so here's what's happening. You get good men and women, and they're forced to bribe. They're forced to be evil. It's either that or go hungry.
I don't know,
But
Tom.
that's
The reason that Sue's photo is up there, maybe because Sue is just an artist. He says he's an ordinary guy from China, and look, 40,000 acres of land, right? 40,000. But this is what Irfan Ali has. Jagdir gave Irfan Ali this couple
That's right.
acres
That's
just
right.
before he. I don't know, lots and
But that's
lots
how
of.
but that's how it works, right? But here's what happens. Okay. I'm not taking any, I'm not
Sure.
giving excuses for anyone, but I'm just saying how sad it is that even the good people have to go bad
I don't know.
in order to
Tom,
be in Guyana. That's not
Tom,
right. Okay.
yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
So definitely heartbreaking. We're looking at the time, lots of comments coming in, and let me just make it clear that this guy in the photograph, he's not, he hasn't been accused of money laundering or anything. So I just want to make it clear. This is an article in the Starbuck News, I believe, and we were just talking about the headline, not the guy in the photo, but someone behind that company, the GYSBI Shore Base, I'm told that he was held in the U.S. on allegations of money laundering. And that is not the gentleman in this photograph here at all. I just want to make that clear. Before we go, Tom, it's always a pleasure having you on here on Straight Up 107.1 FM. And I want us to touch on a situation because a lot of Guyanese in the United States are writing, and they have been doing that for a while quietly. They have been calling and writing to their elected officials, congressmen, congresswomen, senators, and other elected officials in the United States. Lots of folks have been doing that, and I say kudos to them. Are you surprised that things seem to be taking a turn, or do you see things to be taking a turn in Guyana as it pertains to U.S.-Guyana relationship?
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thing. There are going to be twists. There are twists and turns to be had in this relationship all the time. There's a turn happening now. Okay, fine. I will say this, Mark. What's the most important thing is there are opportunities that come with dealing with America. There are some pitfalls, right? The people of Guyana need to be smart. They need to understand that you have to protect your interests, your borders, your people, right? First and foremost, you have to implement rule of law so that when you deal with us, you can deal shoulder to shoulder with us, that you're not getting ripped, right? Because we will rip you off if you don't have your stuff together, okay? Anybody will. That's just the bottom line. And so, yes, there's a turn happening in a relationship. Like I said, the war is here. Whether everyone listening now wants to accept that or not, it's here, okay? It's not a conventional war. A big part of this is economic, and a big part of the economic part of this war is food supply. And I'm telling you, you're going to feel it even in Guyana, okay? So with that said, things are going to be happening here. There is going to be a turn here. There's going to be a focus from our people to want to help the country, the nation of Guyana, implement rule of law and to move in a direction that benefits your people as well as ours. It's in our interests to have a strong, independent Guyana in South America. It's in our interests, okay? It's not in our interest to have a basket case country, Guyana. That hurts us tremendously. We've seen the results of that when you have that. So with that in mind, we are looking from our end to build a relationship with Guyana that benefits both countries. But in that process of building that relationship right now, in that little turn we've had, it's going to be on the people of Guyana to watch the little things and to hold your elected officials accountable and not allow them to sell you out to benefit themselves in the relationship with us. Because I'm going to tell you something. We just want to get what we want to get. We're not going to tell Jack Dale or anyone else not to rip off their own people. We're not going to tell them that. We're not. Okay? We're going to let him do, or these guys do whatever they want to do. So it's imperative that the people of Guyana understand that you have to hold your elected officials accountable on every level, even on the little things, because that's the only way this is going to go right in your relationship with us or any other country for that matter.
Tom, it's always a pleasure. I know you'll be back next week, but before you go, I'm sure briefly before you go, I've noticed that the Jamaica has a new ambassador. The U.S. ambassador to Guyana, her time has expired, but obviously, when I say her time has expired, or allotted time, and so she's basically there on extra time until a new ambassador is appointed and confirmed. But in Jamaica, this guy, a picture taken with a longtime politician and a friend, Nick Perry. He's Jamaican by birth. He's heading to Jamaica soon. He has been confirmed by the U.S. Senate to be the new U.S. ambassador to Jamaica. He's a born Jamaican. He's Assemblyman Nick Perry from Brooklyn. Are you surprised, briefly, are you surprised at the swift nomination, even though it took over a year, the confirmation, at the Senate?
Oh, it had to happen, man. It needed to happen a long time ago, right? There are things happening in this hemisphere. There are things happening, okay? And it's imperative that our ambassador with Jamaica is there, okay? Because our relationship to the UK, it kind of runs through Jamaica in some ways, okay? Especially when it comes to dealing with things here in the Caribbean, because you have to remember, right? There are these things called the British Virgin Islands. And out there, you've got all these Russian oligarchs who are hiding all kinds of cash. And it's Jamaica and our relationship with the UK. It's sort of like that pivot point. There's a pivotal point there with Jamaica between us and the UK where we collaborate to go after things happening in the BVI. Okay. So it was imperative that he got there. He's going to be a very busy man and he's got some big things he's got to do.
Very, very busy man indeed. I just want to say congratulations to Nick Perry, the new U.S. ambassador to Guyana. He's no longer assemblyman out there in Brooklyn. He's now headed to Jamaica probably by the end of the month. Tom, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. I know we'll be back next week. And thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of the evening and in preparation for a weekend. All the best to you and your family, sir. Thanks.
You. Thank you, everyone in Guyana. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Tom Anderson there for you guys. My name is Mark Benschop. Lots of things, right? We still no word about these missing fishermen. No word at all. This is beyond fishy. I'll get into that maybe tomorrow, but no word on those fishermen at all. None whatsoever. All right. So, the Essequibo Guyana border issue court matter will come up very soon. And I just want to say that kudos to the Grainger administration for that. And all the success that we will be having at the court is as a result of the David Grainger administration. Had that been up to Jack Dale would have been selling Essequibo out to Venezuela. And it is just a matter of fact. You saw exactly what Jack Deo was attempting to do there, right? All right. So guess what? I'll be back tomorrow evening, same place, same time. Don't forget tomorrow morning, the Gabby show, Gabby and DJ Andre, Selector Andre, they will be on tomorrow. But for now, my name is Mark Benschop. Until then, God bless you and God bless the beautiful country of Guyana. So long.
What is the difference between the ordinary thief and a political thief? Number one, the ordinary thief steals your money, your bag, your watch, and your jewelry, isn't it? But the political thief steals your future, your career, your education, your health, and your business. Number two, the hilarious part is that the ordinary thief will choose whom to rob. But you are the one who choose the political thief to rob you. Because we choose them. We vote them. We blindly say we are not blind. Who is deceiving who? The ridiculous part of the whole issue is that we will fight to defend